change the pace. I can't face another day. And love lies bleeding in my hand. Oh, I tell me to think I was you with another man. I was playing rock and roll, you were just a fan. With my guitar, you were holding, so I split the band. Love lies bleeding in my hands. I wonder if those changes have left a scar on you. Like all the burning hoops who fly with you and I pass you. You're a bluebird on a telegraph line. I hope you're happy now. Well, if the wind out change coming down your way, girl, you'll make it back somehow. And love lies bleeding in my hand. Oh, I tell me to think I was you with another man. I was playing rock and roll, you were just a fan. With my guitar moving roll, so I split the band. Love lies bleeding in my hands.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Congressman Ron DeSantis.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be in Jacksonville. Thank you. Thank you very much. And there's, just joining us, my Lieutenant Governor, Jeanette Nunez, and my wonderful wife, Casey. You know, I'm happy to be here, and I'm also proud to be running in this race and giving the people of Florida a very clear choice. I'm the only one running who has served our country in uniform in the military. I'm the only one running who will not raise your taxes. And I'm the only one running who can credibly say, I'm not under investigation for corruption by the FBI. You know, we have these debates and this and that, and you know, at the end of the day, leadership is about taking responsibility. It's about leveling with the voters of Florida. And the last few days has shown that Andrew Gillum just can't do that. He doesn't have leadership, and he's not willing to be honest with the voters of Florida. Now, I had asked him on Sunday, you know, you went on a junket in New York with an undercover FBI agent who you thought was a contractor looking to do business with the city, and these lobbyists who were doing business with you, and you go to this play. Now, you know, going to this play, Hamilton's not like going to the Avengers at the movie theater. It costs like $1,000 to go do this. And he went, who paid for it? Did you pay for it or the undercover agent paid? Oh, I pay for everything. I'm a grown, all this other stuff. Did you pay for the junket into Costa Rica with the lobbyists? Oh, I pay for everything. Well, then documents come out 2 days later. He didn't pay for it. We know that. He lied to the people of Florida. And here's the thing, you know, he's got all these excuses that he tries to do, but this issue about integrity, it's not about black or white. It's about right or wrong. And what he did, yes. And here's the thing. So what he does, so obviously getting a $1,000 gift from an undercover agent who's investigating you is not good. It does violate Florida law because you're, as an office holder, you just can't accept gifts like that. And then he did this junket with the lobbyists who put together the New York junket, were lobbying for stuff in front of the government. That was like a $1,000 luxury stay, at this villa. Again, that violates the law as well. But the real problem with it is those same lobbyists who arranged the New York junket, the same lobbyists who did the Costa Rica villa, they're benefiting Andrew. They're basically putting money in his pocket. What did he do as mayor? He turned around and gave those same people a $2 million contract to build a restaurant with taxpayer dollars. So what else is he hiding from the people of Florida? Did they end up doing, stop. Did they end up doing more travel that was paid for by lobbyists? He's under ethics investigation by the Florida Ethics Commission. Why not waive confidentiality so we can get all these documents out in the public so that the voters know what's out there? But as bad as that is, and I think it is bad because, we don't want to elect a corrupt mayor to be governor of Florida. It's just not what you want. But as bad as that is, his agenda for Florida is probably even worse. If you look at what he wants to do, we have a great economic recovery going. The momentum is on Florida's side. We have people looking to invest in Florida every single day. But they do that because they know Florida has had good policies with low taxes. And I think we have a historic opportunity to grow manufacturing, technology, financial services, all these things that are going to mean higher paying jobs and a much stronger economic base for our state. And if I'm governor, we're going to get that done, trust me. But Andrew, his idea is, okay, we have all these people looking to come to Florida, so his big idea is to raise taxes 40%. Well, how is that going to protect Florida jobs? People will lose jobs as a result of that. Businesses will leave Florida as a result of that, and the investment that we are looking to attract will dry up because we'll have a higher tax rate than the state of New York. That is not the way to get this done. And here's the thing. He has a history of raising taxes throughout his political career. He's been a career politician for almost 20 years. He's advocated higher sales tax in Tallahassee. When he was on the city commission, he voted as a city commissioner to raise property taxes, which was especially cruel because that was right in the heart of the recession, and it came on the heels of him having voted to give himself tens of thousands of dollars in extra retirement benefits. So higher taxes for you and more benefits for him. I don't think that works as a good governing strategy. And then as mayor, he imposed a stiff property tax increase on the people of Tallahassee. He wants higher federal taxes, and he's really never met a tax he wouldn't hike. So his 40% tax increase here in Florida, that's just what he's telling you he'll do. The James Madison Institute, a nonpartisan think tank, recently analyzed all his economic proposals and what that would mean in terms of costs for Florida taxpayers. And they concluded, not me, they concluded that to pay for what he's promising, you would need either a statewide sales tax of 38%, or you would have to impose a state income tax in Florida. That's the only way to pay for it. So we won't let that happen. We're going to make sure we win on November 6th and keep Florida's economy going strong. The other thing that we take for granted sometimes because we've had improvements throughout most of Florida, not Tallahassee, but most of Florida, is public safety and making sure our communities are safe. I've spent a lot of my life protecting the country and the military, working as a prosecutor, trying to protect our communities, working with law enforcement. Andrew, as mayor of Tallahassee, has presided over the most crime-ridden city in the state of Florida, year after year. Last year, Tallahassee had the highest number of murders in the history of the city under his watch. And in fact, the candidate running to succeed him as mayor right now was Andrew's former chief of staff, and he's running mailers to people saying, last year we had the highest murder rate in history. Tallahassee tops the chart in crime. We need change. We need leadership. Yeah, you do, because your current mayor couldn't do it. Now, I wish I could say that the crime in Tallahassee was just as a result of him not being a good administrator, and I think he's not, but that is not the reason. His ideology is one that he's just not going to be able to keep our communities safe. He signed a pledge with this radical group called the Dream Defenders. He tries to run away from it, but he signed it. You read the pledge, it says, I pledge to support the Freedom Papers, which is this radical manifesto. You read that manifesto that he pledged to support, it says that we need to get rid of the police and prisons. It says the police and prisons have no place in justice, and that law enforcement should be defunded and the money spent on welfare programs. Now, this is a group that does not like law enforcement. They view and the stuff they write about them in this thing is disgusting. So that is what he signed his name to. He can't run away from it now. I've been endorsed by the overwhelming number, not only of sheriffs, but the rank and file. I got endorsed by the Deputy Sheriff's Association of Broward County, the most liberal county in Florida. They voted 85% to endorse me because I have a good record. They know I'll stand by them. But they also know that Andrew will not stand by them. He doesn't believe in their mission. He doesn't believe he's aligned with, he still to this day will not disavow the Dream Defenders. And in fact, I think today, over 30 sheriffs throughout the state of Florida, I think like 35, sent Andrew a letter saying what he signed on to is offensive and wrong, and it's attacks on law enforcement, and they've asked him to disavow the endorsement of the Dream Defenders. Is he going to be a leader and do it? He hasn't done it yet, but he needs to do it. So, and then think about how else he would view public safety. He wants to abolish ICE and allow sanctuary cities. You abolish ICE, how are you going to be able to keep control of people coming in the country, fight drugs coming in the country? He still won't answer the question about, will he cooperate with the Trump administration? He says, oh, I'll follow court orders. Well, that's not the way it works. I mean, the administration may work with these criminal aliens. You need to get them out of the country. You can't let them be back on the street. So he hates Trump so much that he does not want to cooperate with ICE. That's putting his left-wing ideology ahead of the safety of our communities, and that is wrong. Another component, I think, of public safety, and it goes far beyond that, though, is that the next governor is going to have the ability to appoint 3 new justices to the state Supreme Court here in Florida. And we've seen how positive that can be with President Trump's appointments, not just to the U.S. Supreme Court, which obviously get all the attention, but all the courts of appeals. He's put more judges, good, solid constitutionalists on the courts of appeal than any president in terms of the same amount of time, I think, in history, but certainly in modern history, and I think they're going to do more after the election. So Trump promised he was going to appoint good, solid, conservative judges, and he has followed through on his promise, and we owe him a debt of gratitude for doing that. So as governor, I will appoint justices to the Supreme Court who understand that the proper role of the court is to apply the law and Constitution as it's actually written, not to rewrite the law, not to rewrite the Constitution, not to impose their personal philosophy on the rest of the state, but to do what a judge is supposed to do, which is to call balls and strikes and apply the law as written. And when we do that successfully, and I will, because the 3 retirements are liberal activist judges, when we put these 3 solid constitutionalists on the state Supreme Court, we will have ended judicial activism in Florida for a generation. So let me just leave you with this. We have less than 2 weeks to make sure that all of our voices are heard in this election. I think that the more effort we put in, whatever actions we can take, will be making sure that we're protecting Florida's future, not only for tomorrow, but a generation to come. We have a very positive agenda that will build off the success that Florida has enjoyed. My opponent is advocating policies that have not worked anywhere else they've been tried, whether it's Illinois, Connecticut, New York, whether it's places like Venezuela. And so we can't allow a failed ideology to take hold in Florida. So I'm asking you to do whatever you can between now and Election Day to not only get out and vote, but to talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, let them know what's at stake in this election, because if I'm governor, Florida is going to continue to lead the way. If we're not successful in this race, then I think it's going to be some tough sledding for our state. And there's no reason to be able to do that. So here's the deal. Stand with me, stand with Jeanette, make sure we come out and make our voices heard. And I'll leave you by just saying in the words of our friend at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, remember, he said, Ron DeSantis is a great leader, a proud veteran, a tough, brilliant cookie who'd make a great governor of Florida. Is she ready? She's ready? No? Thank you. Thank you, thank you. So I'm going to, in a second, introduce Kellyanne, but I don't think she's quite ready. So I'll say just a couple more things that I think that... What's that? Oh, okay, good. All right, well, so it's great to be here in Jacksonville and to have somebody here, along with the Vice President, who many of you know. Kellyanne Conway has been a friend of mine. She's been a friend of mine. She is really an example of a strong, accomplished, conservative woman. She was the first woman to successfully manage a presidential election when President Trump was elected. And she is one of the strongest, most principled folks we have on our side of the aisle. And I think we should give a great Northeast Florida welcome to Kellyanne Conway.
Hello, Northeast Florida. We've been here a time or two, Donald Trump and Mike Pence. We've been here a time or two. Thank you. Wow, Ron DeSantis, you talk more than I do, and that's saying a lot. We're going to shrink my introduction, but I'm here for 3 reasons. One is to tell you, earlier today, I had the privilege of being in the Panhandle with Governor Rick Scott and with Congressman and Mrs. Dunn, and of course, our great Vice President and wonderful Second Lady, Mike and Karen Pence. And we saw firsthand, the Vice President will talk to you about this, but we saw firsthand the great bravery that continues and the resilience and the recovery and the restoration of that area with your Coast Guard, with your National Guard, and all the wonderful volunteers. And it was a real privilege for me to be there at Tyndall Air Force Base and to hear the stories. And so, as the President committed a week or so ago, as the Vice President said today, this administration remains with the people of Florida, and we will be there every step of the way as you rebuild and restore. I'm here for another reason, in my personal capacity as Kellyanne Conway, and that is to tell you that Ron DeSantis should be the next governor of the great state of Florida. And Jeanette Nunez should be your next lieutenant governor. Let me edit myself. Will be your next governor and lieutenant governor. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know from 2 short years ago, elections have consequences. They have consequences for the judiciary. They have consequences for legislation. They have consequences for free markets, and indeed they have consequences for our great military and our veterans, and they have consequences for freedom itself. Elections are fundamentally about choices. And as I look across in my personal capacity, across the political landscape this year at different races, I can think of very few where there's such a stark contrast in the policy positions and the vision that is being put forth by the two candidates, as I see in your governor's race this year. So you have a choice to make. You can go with Ron DeSantis, who will be a reliable vote for the kind of tax cut relief and deregulation and renegotiated trade deals that no longer make us apologize for America, but help America workers and American industries stand tall and rejuvenate. We have a net gain, net new jobs in manufacturing, in construction, in mining. Really just remarkable what's happened all across this country, this economic boom. Unemployment nationwide under 4%. Growth has been over 4%. Blue-collar wages rising. Wages overall rising in a way not since we put man on the moon many, many decades ago. The optimism is higher. Consumer optimism, small business confidence, manufacturing confidence. Our small business owners tell us we were contracting. We were going to close up shop literally, and now we're expanding. Ladies and gentlemen, Ron DeSantis is a reliable vote to keep that economic boom going here in the great state of Florida. Yes. His opponent loves tax hikes. His opponent wants to tax corporations higher. And the Tax Cut and Jobs Act that had Congressman DeSantis's vote, that provided relief for our businesses and our employers in a way that took us from the highest corporate tax rate in the developed world at 35% to 21% beneath the average of 23%. And what has that done? That has led to 8 million Americans receiving bonuses or raises or both. And Nancy Pelosi, that's not crumbs, that's real bread. Real bread. We're repatriating trillions of dollars that has been parked legally overseas. If you voted against, and you are against, as the Democratic candidate for governor is against, if you're against those kind of tax cuts, then you're against the 20,000 new jobs that Apple has said they're bringing to the U.S. You're against all those gains in the trades and in the industries that were flat on their backs, that the candidates, like the Democratic candidate here for governor, has said in the past, the Democratic candidate for 2016 president, whose name I never say anymore, lest I be accused of still saying her name, she promised to put these industries out of business, and they are thriving and they are growing with American workers. Ladies and gentlemen, no. But I do want to talk about law enforcement. I don't want to hear that. I want to talk about the contrast with respect to law enforcement. This is very important for you to hear. We have an Iraq war veteran, former federal prosecutor, who backs the blue, who says to our law enforcement and our first responders, our military veterans, much like our president does and our vice president does, we've got you. You are more deeply respected and better resourced because these men hold office and because that man would be your governor. Law enforcement needs to have the tools and the respect they need, and that includes our Customs and Border Protection. That includes ICE. The idea that you would abolish ICE, who stops child smuggling, who just last year interdicted enough fentanyl to have killed every man, woman, and child in this country, who every single day puts their lives and their safety on the line so that we may be free. And that anti-law enforcement rhetoric is very, very dangerous, and it's very, very unfortunate. A vote for Ron DeSantis is a vote for law enforcement. Any seniors out there? I'm a junior senior. Any seniors out there? Medicare for all is less Medicare for you. And go spread the word. It sounds really great, but a single-payer system, 8.5 years after Obamacare left 20 million Americans without any type of health insurance. A single-payer system masquerading as something called Medicare for all means less Medicare for you and a lot less freedom and health care for everyone else. Now, I've read that the Democratic candidate for governor has said a lot of stuff. But one thing that really strikes me is this embrace of people like Bernie Sanders and ideas that are about socialism. I think that's very unfortunate, because socialism hasn't worked in the countries that have tried it. And in fact, this very generous country, has received so many people from those countries where socialism has failed. Welcome them in here to our society where free markets and freedom reign. We are the land of the free and the home of the brave, in large part because of our free market system and our belief in freedom and free will. Now, I don't know who's in charge of the Democratic Party these days. I can't figure it out. I don't know if it's a 28-year-old socialist from New York. I don't know if it's a 70-something socialist who was here endorsing your candidate. But I do know the policies are wrong. The policies are wrong for Florida. The third reason I'm here, well, let me finish with this. You got to get people out to vote. Since I'm here in my personal capacity as Kellyanne Conway, did you hear that back there? I don't, yes. You've got to get people out to vote. If your friends and your neighbors and your loved ones are saying, well, I hate politics, you know what? You should say to them, I don't blame you. I can understand why you feel that way. But this is not about politics. This is about freedom. This is about policy. This is about the future of Florida. It is not about politics. Politics is a means to an end. So you have to have a 7-second version, a 70-second version, and a 7-minute version. Why I'm voting for Ron DeSantis and Jeanette Nunes and Rick Scott. Why I'm voting Republican. That's right, freedom. Tell them why it is. Tell them why you're doing that. Because then I guarantee you they'll look and they'll say, you know what, I like you and you're like me. We have a connective tissue. Okay, I'm gonna do what you do. Put the signs in your yards, put the bumpers on your stickers. Don't, bumpers on your stickers, yeah. Stickers on your bumpers. They'll love that. Stickers on your bumpers. But I said it in my personal capacity. I love you back, don't forget it, and I certainly love Florida. Ladies and gentlemen, get your friends and your loved ones to the polls. Every vote counts, because in this state and in this country, your vote is your voice. And elections do matter. Elections are about choices. You have a very stark binary choice of policies and visions, and elections have consequences. If Donald Trump and Mike Pence hadn't won Florida and hadn't won the presidency, you would not have Neil Gorsuch and Justice Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court. You would not have 26 U.S. Circuit Court judges and counting who believe in freedom. That's right. Your taxes would be higher, your regulations would be more, and your freedom would be less, and the list goes on and on. Our military would not gotten a pay raise. We would not have gotten billions of dollars in historic new funding for school safety, for the opioid crisis. It all happens because people like you go out and vote, and you know that your vote is your voice. So thank you for doing that. I'm here for a third reason, to introduce two longtime friends and great public servants whom I admire deeply and respect enormously. I know you share my admiration and my affection for, and don't come out until I say it, please, for a man who served 12 years in the United States Congress, representing Indiana's 6th Congressional District, went on to be the governor of the great state of Indiana, and then heeded the call from the presidential nominee, Donald J. Trump, to be his running mate. And because of their great work, the two best people on the stump by far, because of their great work, he is now the 48th Vice President of the United States. But before you applaud him, I want to introduce Mrs. Karen Pence, the Second Lady of the United States, and tell you a lifetime of public service and a lifetime of sacrifice, Mike and Karen Pence.
There she stood in the street, smiling from her head to her feet. I said, hey, what is this? Now, baby, maybe
Hello, Florida. It is great to be back in the Sunshine State. And we're here for one reason and one reason only. Florida and America need Ron DeSantis to be the next governor of the great state of Florida. And while you're at it, let's make Jeanette Nunez the next great lieutenant governor. You know, I'm here to talk about a great leader, someone who I've had the chance to get to know. We didn't serve in the Congress together. I was headed back home to Indiana about the time he arrived in Washington, D.C., but I've watched his career, and I've worked with him since this administration arrived in Washington, D.C. And I'm here to tell you, Florida has no greater champion, and the Trump administration has no greater friend than Ron DeSantis, and he will make a great governor for the state of Florida. And I'm here to talk about that candidate, talk about who he is, talk about the progress that we've made as Americans together. And I'm also going to talk about the choice we made. But before I do that, let me say that Karen and I stand before you today deeply humbled and inspired because we just came from the panhandle of Florida. We saw firsthand on the ground the impact of Hurricane Michael that arrived on those shores 2 weeks and 1 day ago. It was incredible. We were there with Governor Rick Scott, who has been an incredible partner of this administration, helping to restore those communities and stand with those families. I'm going to tell you, Governor Rick Scott has been a great governor. He'll be an even better senator for the great state of Florida. But as moved and humbled as we were to see the massive devastation, we were more moved by the resilience of the people of Florida, more inspired by the response of our first responders, military personnel that came along, families. Couldn't be more proud of FEMA and the Coast Guard. We spent time with military families down there, and we had a chance to tell them what President Trump told them when he was in the region about a week ago. We are with you today. We'll be with you tomorrow. We'll be with you every day until Florida rebuilds bigger and better than ever before. And the President sent me down specifically to Tyndall Air Force Base, an extraordinarily important base in our national defense, home of the largest contingent of F-22 Raptor fighter aircraft, and a critical Air Force operations center. The President gave me the great privilege to tell the more than 11,000 airmen who serve at Tyndall Air Force Base that we will rebuild Tyndall Air Force Base in its entirety. It was a great honor. It was a great honor to be with your fellow Floridians. But speaking of our Commander-in-Chief, I was talking to him on the phone this morning. I told him I was headed down to Florida, Ron, and I thought he sounded just a little bit jealous. So let me bring greetings from the man the people of Florida voted to make the 45th President of the United States of America, President Donald Trump. I'll never forget election night. We were standing right there together. You can go like online and find a picture of it. It was like the president and me and his family and my family. We were standing in this big room full of all these campaign folks watching these big screen TVs. And we were watching Florida come in. And I'll tell you what the networks wouldn't call it until they called the last precinct. Remember that? It was like, okay. And when the check mark went by Florida, he hit me in the shoulder and said, "We just won Florida. We're going all the way." So thank you, Florida. Thank you, Florida. Thank you for saying yes to a president who's been fighting every day to keep the promises that he made to the people of Florida. I mean, isn't he something? I'll tell you. I'll tell you. I mean, the leadership, for me to serve alongside this president is the greatest honor of my life, because his energy is boundless. His confidence in the American people is even greater still. And just look at the last few weeks. You want to see the leadership and the impact that Florida voted for in 2016, and that Ron DeSantis has been supporting over the last 2 years. I mean, think about it. Jobs report comes out. Unemployment at a 50-year low, 4.2 million new jobs in less than 2 years. We just cut the largest trade deal in American history. The U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement finally puts American jobs and American agriculture first. And thanks in no small measure to Senator Marco Rubio and that Republican majority in the United States Senate, we just saw Justice Brett Kavanaugh confirmed to the Supreme Court of the United States. And you've seen the president's decisive leadership just in the last 48 hours. The news story that has captured the attention of the American people. Suspicious devices and packages mailed to the Clintons, the Obamas, CNN, and others. As President Trump and I made clear, we condemn these attempted acts of violence in the strongest possible terms. They have no place in American society. The President's directed the full resources of the federal government. The FBI, Department of Homeland Security, are all working closely with local law enforcement, and I promise you, we're going to continue to bring all of our energies to bear. This is the FBI's highest priority. They are already tracking down leads. And those responsible will be brought to justice. But thank you all for coming out today. I really was excited to have a chance to come here, to be with so many great people and so many people that I admire. I'm going to talk about our candidate in a minute, but there's a few other people that I want to acknowledge who are here. A man I did serve in the Congress with, former Congressman Ander Crenshaw, and Congressman John Rutherford and Ted Yoho. Give them all a big round of applause. Great guys. And the next great congressman from Florida's 4th Congressional District, Michael Waltz, is here. And you give another round of applause to Kellyanne Conway. Isn't she something? Great job. And how about the next First Lady of Florida, Casey DeSantis? And while we're at it, I wanted to give one more welcome to the Second Lady of the United States of America, my wonderful wife, Karen Pence. But I'm here to talk about a man who I believe his whole life has been prepared for this moment, prepared to lead the great state of Florida to even greater prosperity and greater security. I mean, Ron DeSantis virtually embodies the best of Florida and of America. He hails from right here in Jacksonville, but his life has been defined by excellence and service to this country. He went to Yale University and Harvard Law School. He could have gone to one of those big-time law firm jobs. Instead, he stepped up and joined the United States Navy. Six years active duty. Ron DeSantis serves in Gitmo, in Iraq, supporting Navy SEAL mission in Fallujah. His actions on record. He received the Bronze Star Medal for meritorious service. He has served in the uniform of the United States of America, and Ron, you have our thanks. But he also answered the call to public service. After leaving active duty, he stepped up to work as a federal prosecutor, targeting and convicting child predators in Florida. In 2012, the people of Florida sent him to the Congress of the United States. And I will tell you, I served in the Congress for 12 years. It seemed longer. It's not an easy place to work. But I'll tell you what, there's some people who the day they arrive, they command the respect of their peers. And in just 6 short years, Ron DeSantis has earned the respect and admiration of men and women in Congress, in both parties and in both chambers. Because Ron DeSantis is a leader. He's been a leader helping to move forward the agenda of this administration that's unleashed the tremendous potential of this economy and resulted in the progress of greater security and America standing tall at home and abroad. I mean, I'm here to tell you, it won't be any great surprise to you. Ron DeSantis has been one of the strongest advocates for the Trump agenda in the Congress of the United States, and President Donald Trump and I are here to support him 100%. With Ron DeSantis in the Congress, think about the progress that we've made, men and women. It's really incredible to think about it. In just 2 short years, I think there's only one way you can describe it. It's been 2 years of action, 2 years of results. It's been 2 years of promises made and promises kept, and Ron DeSantis was there every step of the way. Think about it. With Ron's strong support in the Congress, this president's actually signed more bills rolling back federal red tape than any president in American history. Ron DeSantis was there when we passed legislation to unleash American energy, and now America is exporting energy at a level never before imagined. And with Ron's strong support, President Trump put his signature just before Christmas on the largest tax cuts and tax reform in American history. That's promises made and promises kept. And Ron DeSantis was there every step of the way. You know, but it's not just been about jobs. Not just been about jobs. It's not just been about economic growth. It's also been about security. You know, we think of the tens of thousands of men and women in uniform who live in the state of Florida. We think of the millions who live in the state of Florida who are veterans. And I got to tell you, as the son of a combat veteran and the proud father of a United States Marine, I couldn't be more proud to serve alongside a president who cares so deeply about the men and women of our armed forces. With Ron DeSantis' support, President Trump has already signed the largest increase in our national defense since the days of Ronald Reagan. We're rebuilding our military. We're restoring the arsenal of democracy. And we're finally providing our veterans with the benefits that they earned in the uniform of the United States of America. VA accountability and Veterans Choice is here. And Ron DeSantis was there fighting for it every step of the way. And with Ron's strong support, this administration's also been standing up for the God-given liberties that are enshrined in our Constitution, our Bill of Rights. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. And Ron DeSantis has stood with President Trump as we've stood without apology for the sanctity of human life at home and abroad. Thank you, Ron. And finally, we've been standing with law enforcement at every level. You heard Kellyanne Conway just talking about that. You know, the truth of the matter is it's been a challenging time in the life of law enforcement. Seemed like during the last administration there were too many voices at the national level that were quick to be critical when tragedy would strike in a law enforcement setting. And I want to tell you, under President Donald Trump, and I promise you, when Ron DeSantis is governor of Florida, we will continue to give the men and women of law enforcement the resources, the tools, and the respect that they earn every single day. You know, with the renewed commitment to law enforcement, we've been enforcing our laws. We've been removing dangerous gang members and criminals off of our streets at a record pace. And as Kellyanne Conway mentioned as well, this president has taken the lead with Ron's support to confront the scourge of opiate abuse and addiction across this country and go after the drug dealers that are profiting by poisoning our families. We've also been securing our borders and enforcing our laws, and border security has maybe never been more important. I mean, just look what's been happening over the last week, south of the border. As we speak, another migrant caravan is headed north. Started in Honduras, made its way through Guatemala, now it's in Mexico. By some estimates, more than 7,000 people are making the trek northward to violate our sovereignty and attempt to come into our country illegally. As President Trump said earlier this week, it is nothing short of an assault on our country. And he said today, and I say myself, to those in the caravan, turn around. We are not going to allow you to enter our country illegally. I mean, look, we have to stand strong because we have to secure our borders. As the president often says, a country without borders isn't a country. Secondly, we have to do it for all the people who came to this country legally, like my grandfather who immigrated through Ellis Island. We have to do it for the people who have stood in line to become a part of the United States of America under the law. And lastly, and finally, we have to do it to make sure people don't come into this country who could do us harm our families. Dangerous criminals, gang members, even terrorists. You know, the truth is, and Ron knows this, according to the Department of Homeland Security, on any given day, there are 10 terrorists or suspected terrorists who attempt to enter this country illegally. It's extraordinary. Now, the media spent a lot of time earlier this week challenging President Trump's statement that there were MS-13 or maybe Middle Easterners in the caravan that's headed north. I was asked about it, and I said it was inconceivable that there weren't. Inconceivable. But while the media was busy going off on it, the Department of Homeland Security issued a report. You may not have read about it. The Department of Homeland Security issued a statement saying, quote, gang members and criminals with significant criminal history are in the caravan, and that includes citizens from, I'm quoting, outside Central America, including the Middle East, Africa, and South Asia that are currently traveling through Mexico toward the United States of America. Those are the facts. The truth is this caravan is being advanced by leftist groups and human traffickers who have no regard for human life. I spoke to the president of Guatemala. He told me they were, at that time, about a week ago, loading people up on the buses who've simply been left behind by the caravan because they couldn't keep up. I mean, there's vulnerable families, there's children, there are the elderly that these people are taking advantage of, enticing them in the vulnerable or the dangerous journey north. And the truth is, we need to acknowledge that Ron's opponent and many of the leading voices in the Democratic Party advocate policies that frankly are contributing to the circumstances that human traffickers use to entice people to make the journey north. I mean, Democrats don't want to build a wall. They don't want to secure our border. They don't want to close the immigration loopholes that human traffickers use, like catch and release, to tell people, make the journey all the way up the peninsula, get in, and then you can just be there and stay there and avoid the law. In fact, Ron's opponent and many of the leading voices in the Democratic Party today actually talk about abolishing Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Well, let me make you a promise. With President Donald Trump in the White House, with Rick Scott in the Senate, with Ron DeSantis as your governor, we will never abolish ICE. We will stand with the men and women of Immigration and Customs Enforcement as they enforce our laws. And I'll promise you, we'll secure our border. We'll build the wall. And we'll fix this broken immigration system once and for all. So we've made great progress. You got a great candidate, but here's the choice, plain and simple. My fellow Americans, the choice in this election in Florida couldn't be more clear. In Ron DeSantis, you have a principled leader with a proven record who is ready to lead on day one to take Florida to even greater heights. And in his opponent, Andrew Gillum, you've got just one more voice of the resistance. His politics, his policies look more like Bernie Sanders' Vermont than the Sunshine State. Ron DeSantis stands with the men and women of law enforcement. Andrew Gillum signed a pledge to cut police funding. Ron DeSantis wants to cut your taxes. Andrew Gillum actually raised taxes by 13% in Tallahassee. And now he's promised to raise taxes on Florida businesses by $1 billion. Ron DeSantis is a champion of giving
Dana?
parents the right to choose
Okay,
where their
great.
children go to school. He supports educational
My guess is he'll be
choice
done.
in Florida, and his opponent
My guess is
supports the
he'll be
teachers'
done.
unions and opposes school choice.
We're 8 minutes away from that hit. I bet he'll be
Truthfully,
done.
men and women, it's a choice between tax hikes or tax cuts. It's a choice between jobs and mobs, between open borders and border security, dependence and independence. I mean, the truth is, it's a
Probably
choice between
Pence.
resistance and results in the State House in Florida, and Florida needs
Okay,
to choose
if that works
Ron
for you, sure.
DeSantis to get more results and more jobs and more security in the next 4 years. But it's going to take all of us to do it. Karen and I got a plane to catch, so we're going to leave you here and let you do the work. But I do want to challenge you. Before I do that, can I just say on behalf of my wife and our little family, to the people of Florida, thank you for giving us the opportunity to serve as Vice President of the United States. Thank you. And thank you for coming out today. Thank you for coming out today to show your support for Ron DeSantis and Jeanette Nunez. But here I want you to do 3 things. Number 1, okay, if you're taking notes, here's the first thing I want you to make sure and do. Vote, Florida. Vote for Ron DeSantis and Jeanette Nunez. And vote early. We were out at the airport, we ran into some friends. He was already counting votes because several people said, I just voted for you yesterday. So get it out of the way so you can work the polls on Election Day, okay? I mean, remember this. Friends don't let friends vote alone. Go get a family member, a coworker, a friend, and get them out to vote for Ron DeSantis for governor. Okay? Secondly, go tell somebody. Go tell somebody. I know that, we know the next 12 days it's just going to be a blizzard of television commercials, commentators on TV, be a new poll out every 15 minutes, right? I'll never forget back in Election Day, we were about 2 weeks before Election Day 2016. I think the polls had us losing by like 100% or something.